Making your mix sound louder can be hard without causing distortion or ruining the dynamics of your audio. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you 3 different ways to make your mix sound louder with compression, a little trick with volume automation, and careful decisions with EQ. Stick around, this is some pretty cool stuff. Hey everyone, Jake from DAWs Audio here. The first thing you can do is introduce something with a slightly higher volume and then lower it back down to its original level. This maintains attention to it without permanently raising the volume of it and everything else in the mix. This can really help with controlling the decibel level of everything and will allow you to bring more attention to other elements too, without drowning out the sound you'll be automating. This works because the listener's ear will follow the sound as it drops in volume. To do this, create an automation clip for the channel volume or pre-gain if you don't have that option. Then, if your DAW's default for this is at or really close to 0 dB, instead of increasing it, start from its default position and move it down to a lower level over time, or when other instruments start playing alongside it. And if it doesn't, you should be good to move it up from the start instead, as long as it doesn't pass 0 dB. And of course, this should be eased in, not a hard switch. Then you're going to want to mix the sound as if it was always at this lower level. This means you'll probably have to increase the gain on the mixer track volume fader to account for this if you've already done some mixing, unless you were able to increase the pre-gain from its default. But you'll still want to make sure it's not clipping or causing any other kind of distortion in the entire mix at its louder section when you first introduce the sound. If you want to learn more about pre-gain and why I suggested decreasing instead of increasing, check out the card to the top right. You'll find a video I made about gain staging. The next tip involves a limiter and how you can technically raise the decibel level of the quietest elements by reducing the dB of the loudest. Now, it is important not to destroy the entire dynamic range. That is, the range from the highest and the lowest decibel level of the entire mix. To avoid this, you'll want to use a limiter with subtlety in this case. A good way to tighten up your mix and make it a bit louder is by first putting a limiter on your master track or individual track and analyze the dynamic range. If your limiter doesn't have a visualizer, you could use a plugin called Ulian Loudness Meter, which is free by the way. I'll put the link in the description below. Once you know where the highest peaks are, lower the ceiling until you start to see a bit of the peaks getting compressed. In FL Studio's Fruity Limiter, you can tell when they are by the purple and the white lines, showing you where and by how much. The objective with this is to keep everything within an appropriate region, while still keeping some distance between the highest and lowest peaks. Finally, the last tip involves a lot of EQ decisions that can help your mix. Since the human ear is most sensitive to mid-frequencies, that is where you'll have the most perceived loudness in a mix. So, you can push a little bit of your kick drum into this range instead of the low end, which gives your bass more room anyway. Having the kick and bass compete is another thing, and it's something you want to avoid. You should choose which one will be the most important in the low end, because if these have too many overlapping frequencies, they can cancel each other out, and it can make them both a bit quieter. Another thing with EQ is cutting off the low end on the sounds that just don't need it, even bass. These, of course, are the ones that don't contribute to the sound. Now, all frequencies contribute to the loudness of a track, and if you have a bunch of information or sound that isn't contributing to your mix, it's taking up a lot of the loudness real estate, so to speak. Basically, removing or suppressing some of this can allow you to raise the decibel level of that instrument or sound. Just add a high-pass filter with a very steep curve to trim off frequencies right below where the lowest activity is. For most sounds, this is going to be something like 35 to 45 Hz. But would be more like 20 if it's your sub-bass. Keep in mind that there is a trade-off between dynamics and loudness. I also suggest that you keep your master track between -3 and -6 dB to leave some headroom for the mastering phase. And it does give more room for dynamic range. If you enjoyed, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to stay up to date. As always, thanks for watching.